All right, so this video is for a guy called More Jello, Please. I'm Steve. I've been a lawnmower technician for about 15 years. And I saw in your last video, you were doing some stuff that I generally do to test and see if the blades are cutting even, because you do want them to be, you want the tips to be even right there. A little bit of stair step you're probably not going to see, but if it's too bad or if it's way out of whack, it's gonna leave some issues. But the gap here doesn't make that big a difference because you have what's called blade overlap. And if you run these straight across parallel with the back of the deck and you look down it with a straight edge, let's see if I can get that kind of right at the edge there. And you can see this blade overlaps that one. So when you're traveling in a forward or backward motion, it's overlapping where this other one's cutting. And the reason why it does that is because they've moved the center blade forward and the two back blades in a little bit, and that's how they can clear each other at an angle. But when they're straight on, you've got blade overlap. That's the number one thing. So don't worry about the little gap in between your blades. That's not that big a deal. You do want them to be even. And when you're looking at that, if one of them is, if you take this blade and set them like that and check to see if they're even, and then spin it around, and the other side is way more off than the first one, then you probably have a bent blade. If they're both off, no matter how you turn it, about the same, then you probably have a bent deck, or the spindle's cocked in there for some reason. Something has been bent. So as long as they're matching up here, you should be fine. The only other thing I saw in your video, or a couple things that I saw in your video before the ones you had up there, were that you had flat leveled the deck, and you really don't want to do that. These blades, this tang that hangs up the back here, creates a negative pressure under the deck like a vacuum, and that's intended to stand the grass up and make it firm so that when this blade comes around, it can cut it off cleanly. You want that back of the deck to be up about 1/4 of an inch higher than the front, because it's going to allow air to come up underneath here and stand the grass up. That way you've got more airflow to pick the grass up and then to carry it out to the chute. The other thing I saw was if you're running the mulch kit, you really need to be mulching. And what I mean by that is like dry leaves, small twigs, pecans, stuff like that. That's what the mulch kit's for. When you get into that big, it looked like Bahia grass or that big, tall, thick stuff you had, you really don't want that mulch kit on there. You want to let it free flow underneath there. You're going to get a lot better cut that way. But when you have the mulch kit, it blocks all these off into separate little circles that keep the material in there to chop it up and chew it up. It's not, it keeps the natural design of the deck is to move the material across and out to the chute. But when you put that mulch kit in there, it deletes all that. So you want the back of the deck to be a little bit higher than the front, maybe about 1/4 of an inch to let that air in. And the front of the deck you'll want at cutting height. And the best way to do that is to set the mower on a flat surface, check your tire pressure like you've done before, get you a 2x4 and set it on its side. Because on its side, you're gonna have about 1 inch, 1 3/4 or so, something like that. So set your deck height at 1 3/4 inches. Set the front of the deck on top of this 2x4. Don't worry about the back at first. Get it to set on this 2x4 or on that 2x4 nice and soft. You don't want like full pressure on it, but just touching on both sides where it's even. And then you'll drop your deck down 1 notch and then move the 2x4 to the back and do the same thing. And that'll give you about 1/4 inch rise or something like that when you pick the deck back up. So I hope that helps you. As far as the part of your property that has a bunch of rocks and stuff, I don't have a good answer for you. The best thing I could say is maybe take the mulch kit out and just run the baffle on that end to where it kind of encapsulates some of that stuff in that area, but you'd be better off to take it off when you get into the taller grass. If you have any other questions, man, I'd be more than happy to help you out. I just didn't want to type a thesis in the comments to try to explain to you how I think you should set your deck up. I don't think the mulch kit's going to help you much at all. Maybe a manual operated discharge chute cover. I know there's some companies out there that make that called Quick Shoot. There's one of them that we sell, and I think there's a couple more out there. But more Jello, please. I hope this helps you, and I hope you get your mower figured out, man.